Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of where I share everything that I know about the car business to help you guys get a fantastic deal. Now, up on today's board, a lease. Everybody's favorite thing. This can be incredibly confusing if you don't know what it is that you're looking at. This takes a lot more time to understand than financing. Financing is extremely easy. Leases, there are a lot of moving parts. I'm going to break down everything step by step, everything we need to know first, and then I'll walk through an entire way of how to calculate a lease. What is a lease? A lease is basically where you're renting the car from the manufacturer. I know most of you guys have heard of a 36-month, 36,000 mile lease. What does that mean? That means you are allowed to have the car for 36 months and you're allowed to drive it 36,000 miles. That's what your contract is. When you're renting the car, that is what you are allowed to do with it. Now, the first question that everybody asks is what happens when you go over mileage? Now, every manufacturer, every car is a little bit different, but the average is you have to pay about 15 cents a mile. So that is what you are roughly going to pay, 15 cents a mile for everything you are over. So let's say at the end of the 36 months and your 36,000 miles, you actually have 40,000 miles, okay? So you're about 4,000 miles over. Very simple. You're gonna take 4,000, multiply it by 15 cents, which means that you are actually only going to pay about $600, okay? So you're going to get a bill from Toyota, Nissan, Cadillac, whoever it is, for a $600 bill because you are over mileage. In that example, I went over two critical things. I went over your term, which is 36 months. And then the other thing I went over was your mileage. How many miles a year are you allowed to drive? Which is 12,000 miles a year, okay? So these are two of the most important things because you need to know how long are you allowed to have this thing for and how far can you drive it? The next two most important things for you to understand is the cap cost and the residual. So what is the cap cost? This is what you're actually buying the car for. This is incredibly important because this is going to go in exactly to how much money you are still borrowing on the car. Brad, what the heck do you mean? It's a lease. I'm not borrowing anything. You are, because you have your residual, which is how much it's worth at the end of your lease, okay? So why does this matter? This is how much money you're borrowing. This is what your payment is calculated off of on a lease. So for example, let's say that you are buying an SUV that you are spending $50,000. That's the cap cost. That's what you are spending on it. The next thing you need to know is your residual, which is always a percentage, which we look for something around 70%. That's about what it's gonna be worth at the end. That is a pretty good residual. In this example, that means that the car is going to be worth $35,000 at the end of your lease. Now, this is where we start calculating a lease. So you take what you spent on it and you subtract what it's gonna be worth, and you have $15,000. Okay, that is the amount that you are borrowing over those 3 years. Now, the next most important thing is your money factor. I'm sure you've heard this thrown around. I'm sure you don't really know exactly what the heck that means. And this is your fancy term for your interest rate. Yes, you have an interest rate on your lease and it is masked as being called your money factor. Now, how do you calculate your money factor into an actual interest rate? Because money factors look ridiculous. Something like this, 0.00215. What the heck does that mean? How in the world is this your interest rate? So what you have to do to calculate your interest rate is multiply this number by 2,400. Yes, it's weird, I know, which this is going to give you 5.16%. So this is how much your interest rate is over the course of your lease. It is 5.16%. So you have to keep this number in mind. This is huge. This is another thing that goes straight into calculating your lease. The last three things that we need to learn in this is your upfronts, your disposition fee, and your gap insurance. So started from the bottom up, gap insurance. This is guaranteed asset protection. You need to know if your lease comes with this or not. Now, what the heck does gap insurance mean? That covers the difference between what you owe and what it's worth. Let's say you owe $44,000 on this $50,000 car, okay? Because you're about halfway through your lease, but it's only worth $38,000. It covers that $6,000 difference there. So you don't have to come out of pocket, God forbid you ever totaled it. Now, the next thing that we have to know is your disposition fee. The disposition fee, very simply, is the cost to terminate the lease at the end. So after you've hit that 36 months, 36,000 miles, let's say you want to go into the dealership, drop off the keys and tell them, hey, this is your problem now. Perfect, no problem. The only thing you'll have is a disposition fee that will come at you from the manufacturer. Typically, this is a very low fee relative to what you can be charged, $300. So is it anything crazy? No. Is it something to keep note of? Yeah, absolutely. Now, the next thing we need to learn is the upfronts, or the acquisition fee. So this is how much money it cost the dealership upfront to start your lease with the manufacturer. Yes, that's a real thing. I promise you, it happens on every single manufacturer. So what does this mean for you? This is typically when you see advertisements, $3,400 down, $300 a month on a car. Well, that $3,400 down covers your upfronts. This is what it costs to actually get your lease kickstarted. This completely ranges from manufacturers, and this includes your doc fees, your registration fees, and a couple other things like that. It just handles all that stuff all together. This is typically somewhere in the neighborhood of around $2,000 or so to get everything started, between your $1,000 doc fee, your acquisition fee, which is typically about another $1,000. So just to recap all of our terms, what they mean. Term: how long are you going to actually have the car for? 36 months in this case. Miles: how many miles are you allowed to drive per year? 12,000 miles a year. Cap cost: how much are you actually buying the car for? This situation, $50,000. Residual: what is it going to be worth at the end of your term? 36 months, 36,000 miles, 70%, $35,000. Okay. Money factor: that is your interest rate. Don't forget, multiply that by 2,400, you'll get your interest rate. Our money factor, 0.00215 in this situation. Upfront: $2,000 due at signing. This is what it costs to get everything going, also known as your acquisition fee. Disposition fee, $300 at termination. So what does that mean? It costs you $300 at the end of your term to drop off the keys to the dealership and say goodbye, walk away from the car, no problems. Gap covers your negative equity. Again, if you owe $38,000 on this SUV and it is only worth $34,000, that $4,000 difference gets covered if, God forbid, you were to ever get in a wreck. Now, here comes the fun part of actually breaking down a lease and how you can do it yourself as well. So the first two things that we're going to start off with is our term, 36 months, and our miles, 12,000 miles a year. Okay, we're going to go over the very standard lease in this situation. Now, the next thing that we need to know is our cap cost. We're going to use the same example of $50,000 on our cap cost, and we're also going to use the same residual of 70%, which is $35,000. So that is going to give us our $15,000 difference there. This $15,000 is called our depreciation. That's how much it's going to depreciate over our 36 months and 36,000 miles. The next thing we're going to calculate is something called our rent charge. This is going to be where our money factor comes into play. This is how much we get charged to borrow the money. So how do you calculate that? You're going to take your cap cost plus your residual and multiply it times your money factor. So we take the 50,000 plus 35,000, which is 85,000, and we multiply it times our money factor, 0.00215. This will give us $182.75. Now, the next thing that we have to do is take our depreciation, and we're going to divide that by 36 months, which is going to give us our base payment. So we take our $416.67, which is our depreciation, 15,000 divided by 36 months, and we add in our rent charge, which is how much it cost us to borrow the money, which will give us a total of $599.72. Now, we're not quite done. I know this is quite a lot to follow, but we're not quite done. The only thing we have left is sales tax, because you pay it on every single payment rather than all up front like you do when you're financing. So here in Florida, 7% sales tax. So that is going to give us a true final payment of our 7%. $641.39. So that is how we calculate a lease payment, which, yes, it's a lot. So we do know we're gonna have it for 36 months, and we're gonna have it for 36,000 miles, 12,000 miles a year. We know our cap cost is $50,000. Our residual is 70% at $35,000, okay? Our depreciation is $15,000. That's how much the car is gonna depreciate over that 36 months, 36,000 miles. Now, we have our rent payment. How much is it gonna cost us to borrow this car and the money? $182.75, because we have to take the cap cost, add the residual, and then multiply it by the money factor, okay? That will give us our $599.72, and then we have to add in taxes of 7% here in Florida. Obviously, it'll vary on your state, but $641.39. Now, if you remember correctly, there's $2,000 in upfront cost in this same situation. So where does that $2,000 go? So it can come from a couple of different places. Number one, you can negotiate down your cap cost from $50,000 to $48,000, and then it's a wash. $48,000 plus $2,000 is $50,000, right? Everything stays the exact same. Now, let's say this is what we negotiated down to, and then we have our $2,000 in upfronts. We can do two things with that. Number one, we can put the money down. Don't do that on a lease, by the way. Never put money down on a lease. You can put the money down, and you'll have your same $641 payment, or we can add another $2,000 to our cap cost, which I did the calculations behind the scenes so we didn't have to rerun through the entire thing, but that will make your payment about $55 higher. So your total payment, zero money down, upfronts, money factor, everything will be a total of $696 is our total payment if we go zero money down, including our $2,000 down of upfronts, everything. So this is how you calculate a lease from start to finish. So you don't just get a payment from the dealer and just have to roll with it. Now, another way, where can dealers make money in this? There's always a way that dealers can make money in this, and the number one way that they do it is right here in your money factor. Yes, they can inflate your money factor, because at the end of the day, it is just an interest rate. How much can they inflate it by? Typically, they are stuck to 100 basis points. What is 100 basis points? This number right here, the 2, and they can inflate that. So in this example, 215, they can inflate that to a 315. And yes, they will make that 100 basis points difference, as you can see here, which is about $100 a month, which in 36 months, $3,600. Yes, they make money everywhere, guys. You have to be very, very careful when it comes down to it, because after they inflate that, they make another $3,600. You had no idea because you didn't ask what the money factor was. You have to ask all these certain things so you don't get taken advantage of, guys. Or, of course, go with somebody who knows what they're doing, or have me do it all for you. Very simple. I know everything on how it all works. I make sure that you get a fantastic deal. So what you can do now is go in the comment section, comment the word help, and I will help you get a fantastic deal on your next lease, or better yet, figure out is a lease or finance better for you on the specific car that you're looking at, and then negotiate you a heck of a deal, and then we can figure out which one works best. The next thing, after understanding your lease, you signed up for the lease, congratulations. What happens at the end? So there are 3 different options at the end of your lease. The first one, you can terminate it. So what you can do is go into the dealership, drop the keys off, sign one paper, and you're gonna get billed that $300 disposition fee. Remember, that's what it cost us at the end to turn in the car. But you can just terminate it, walk away from it, no harm, no fouls. You're completely done, you get to go get something else. The second one that you get to do is you actually get to buy it out if you love it. So what does that mean? Remember that residual we talked about earlier, that $35,000? That's what you can actually buy this car for. It was preset when you sign the lease and everything. So you can go buy this car if you absolutely love it. Let's say you've only put 5,000 miles a year on it. It's only got 15,000 miles. couldn't imagine getting anything else, buy it out for that $35,000 and you're done. What is the last one that you can do? Trade it in. Yes, you can trade it in. Now, how does trading in a lease work? Okay, there's a couple different ways. Number one, the dealership is going to put a valuation on your car. Let's say that it is worth $40,000, right? How it sits, just like a normal trade. If you were financing it, had it paid off, or whatever, they're going to put $40,000 as the value. Now, let's say your residual is still that same $35,000. Well, that's what you owe on it, plus your disposition fee. So you owe $35,300 on it. You have $4,700 in equity in that. So you can trade that back into your dealership and basically have $4,700 down. That can go towards financing something else. That can go towards leasing something else, whatever it is that you want to do. So you have options at the end that really do make it flexible for you. Drop off the keys, buy it out because you love it, or trade it in and get something else because you're at the end of it and you're ready for something new. You guys have a ton of options at the end of the lease. They can be very complicated, but they do make sense and you actually know what's going on. That is the key. You have to know what's going on in order for it to make sense, but it is a great option. That's why it's there for you. Now listen, if you guys love this stuff, please like and subscribe. Helps me out a ton, and it also helps out people like yourselves who are here trying to learn about this stuff. Now, if you do want it all done for you, you don't want to worry about any of the stress, comment the word help. I'll reach out to you and we'll see what we can do for me to negotiate your entire deal. But of course, I want everybody to get a great deal and understand what they're actually signing. See you guys next time.